The sun hung low over the Atlantic, its orange glow glinting off the scattered solar arrays that had sprouted along the coastlines like stubborn lilies. Admiral Catherine Hunt stood atop the bastion of Fort Ascendant, a massive structure perched on the jagged cliffs near what was once Boston. She wasn't admiring the view. Her eyes were fixed on the expanding sky, scanning the horizon. Everyone awaiting the dreaded moment when the corrupt Galactic Federation's fleet would pierce the atmosphere felt as though the ocean itself anticipated a gathering storm. The war wasn't just about territory or resources. It was about the soul of humanity. Ever since the Federation's envoys arrived on Earth demanding submission, the conversation in the United Earth government had been filled with whispered intrigue and passionate arguments. The Federation's offer sounded generous: advanced technologies, cures for humanity's most persistent diseases, and admission into a grand coalition of countless alien worlds. But the cost was steep. Earth would lose its autonomy, beholden to strict tribute and forced to accept Federation-appointed overseers. President Elise Reyes had stood firm, rejecting the final ultimatum a month ago. And so, the Federation had declared Earth an insubordinate planet in need of corrective action. Across the globe, defensive battlements hummed with readiness, while factories deep underground churned out plasma rifles, railgun shells, and energy shields. The biggest question was not if the Federation would attack, but how soon. The more bleak-minded among the Earth Defense Council believed the Federation's might would simply glass the planet from orbit. Others insisted they would occupy Earth as an example, demonstrating their power without risking the planet's valuable resources. Admiral Hunt had a different perspective. She believed the Federation needed Earth subdued, publicly, to discourage other rebellious worlds from rising. There would be a ground invasion, one aimed at humiliating humanity in front of the entire galactic community. Nightfall came swiftly, and with it the metallic screech of planet-wide communication channels. Alarms ignited. The Federation had arrived in orbit, sending gravity waves that rattled satellites out of alignment. The first wave of battleships and posing constructs with shimmering black hulls slipped through the darkness, monstrous shapes backlit by the faint starlight. Far below, Earth's web of citadels buzzed into action. Rapid-fire anti-orbital cannons, archaic by Federation standards, still possessed the capacity to breach hulls at close range. All along the cliffside at Fort Ascendant, staglights thrummed as superheated coils readied for what was to come. Admiral Hunt stood within command ops, an expansive chamber carved into the bedrock. Digital readouts and swirling holodisplays projected a mosaic of the incoming Federation ships. Each new blip lit up with a short beep that reverberated through the hall. Captain Gizem Cole strode in, face drawn tight, her posture braced against a wave of tension simmering in every corner of the base. "They're aligning in low orbit, Admiral," she said, voice quiet but resolute. "Scanning indicates at least 3 dreadnoughts, numerous destroyers, and tens of smaller warships." "Then we're in for a real fight," Hunt replied. Her fingers danced across the holo table, marking strategic points across the planet. "Today might be the day we show them humanity will not bow. Or it might be the day they try to crush us underfoot." She took a slow breath. "We can't afford half measures. I want every Earthside fighter, every remote drone, and every ground-based rail cannon primed at my command. We're not going to invite them in. We'll meet them at the threshold." Earth's refusal to join the Federation had not come without consequences. Even before this invasion, trade routes were severed, medicines blocked, and intimidation tactics deployed. The planet's population lived under the Federation's looming threat for months, bracing for an assault that many believed would be unstoppable. But they had heroes among them, brilliant engineers who had improvised shield networks from salvaged extraterrestrial technology, renegade pilots who trained relentlessly in labyrinthine canyons, and dedicated politicians who resisted calls to surrender for the sake of short-term well-being. These overshadowed the voice of fear, forging a rare unity in Earth's fractious political landscape. President Reyes stood at the center of the War Council back in Geneva, her eyes locked on the largest display, sleepless nights had etched worry lines into her face, but her conviction remained unwavering. Around her, the shimmer of tactical projections flickered, showing Earth's best guess of the Federation's enormous fleet. Off to the side, advisors argued behind clenched teeth, some advocating a hasty capitulation to spare civilian lives. Reyes refused to entertain the idea. "They can't claim dominion over us," she said. "To surrender now would be condemning future generations to tyranny. We must defend Earth with every ounce of courage." Shuttles loaded with specialized strike teams waited in the underground bunkers. Former street kids from the favelas fought alongside veterans from old national armies, all now united as Earth Defense Forces. Brigadier Oyin Marsh led the 23rd Coalition Battalion. She had survived the battered soils of Mars, where Earth had barely fended off an alien raiding party a decade earlier. Now she stood in the claustrophobic troop bay of a gunship, checking her squad's gear with stoic efficiency. Her soldiers wore mismatched armor plates, scavenged from outdated supply lines. However, the look in their eyes said they would fight and die before letting Earth fall. High above, the Federation dreadnought Perseverus took position, an obelisk larger than most Earth cities. Its rotating superstructure housed strike pods and an energy lance capable of piercing any known shield. On its bridge stood Lord Marshal Keldrin, clad in regal black and gold robes. His presence carried the authority of 1,000 systems. He surveyed the swirling planet below as though gazing upon a wayward child. "Foolish," he whispered, addressing his officers. "We offered them a place among the stars, and they have turned their backs on civilization. Now we will demonstrate why our Federation reigns supreme." The first barrage from Earth soared upward, luminous streaks of plasma roiling across the night sky. Federation destroyers maneuvered expertly, letting the brunt of the attack crash harmlessly against their forward shields. Some smaller corvettes scuttled into protective formation behind capital ships. But Earth's assault wasn't all show. A few well-aimed rail slugs hammered into a heavy cruiser. Its shield fizzled for a moment under the unexpected power, forcing the vessel to retreat for emergency repairs. Keldoran's eyes narrowed. Perhaps these humans were not as primitive as rumored. Ground-to-orbit exchanges lit the upper atmosphere, glimmering streams that cascaded across the planet's magnetic field. Civilians watched from behind barricaded windows. Crouching in basements or community shelters, many prayed to old gods or new technologies. Television networks broadcast instructions and glimpses of the battle above. In the dark farmland of Iowa, farmers abandoned their fields to join improvised militias. Workers at orbital elevator stations in equatorial Africa sealed the doors, prepared to sabotage gravity lifts if the Federation tried to utilize them. As Earth's defensive cannons recharged for another volley, Federation troop transports broke from the main fleet. They plunged toward carefully selected landing zones, each vessel streaking with brilliant thruster flares. Defensive radars sounded fresh alarms. The invaders were coming. Anti-aircraft guns spat streams of tungsten projectiles, forcing some transports to deviate. A few craft exploded into smoldering wreckage, careening into the ocean or crashing into deserted outskirts. But enough made it through the gauntlet of flak, disgorging squads of Federation shock troopers clad in glossy black exosuits. On the outskirts of Berlin, one such transport landed near the remains of the Brandenburg Gate. The troopers approached the city along roads once bustling with tourists. Now, a labyrinth of barricades and earthen walls awaited them. The defenders, a mix of local security forces and volunteer fighters from around the continent, struck with homemade mortars and surprisingly sophisticated rail sniper rifles. Bolts of purple plasma lit the ancient streets. Sparks danced off hammered steel watchtowers. Shrill commands echoed in a foreign dialect as Federation troopers advanced methodically, their armor glimmering with advanced shielding technology. But Earth's insurgent tactics pinned them in, street by street, forcing them to adapt to a brand of warfare they seldom encountered in the cosmos. Elsewhere, the Federation sought to seize communications hubs in order to disrupt Earth's chain of command. One critical target lay in the Australian outback, where an immense array of dish antennas relayed signals connecting continents. The Federation's desert deployment quickly turned into a vicious engagement, with dust storms swirling around both sides. Earth's mechanized infantry roared forward on newly developed hoverbikes that skimmed the arid landscape. The swirling sand gave them an advantage, confusing the targeting systems of the Federation scanners. Federation officers, unprepared for the harsh conditions, struggled to maintain cohesive lines. In the chaos, Earth's forces took advantage and destroyed several key Federation vehicles before withdrawing deeper into the desert. Up in low Earth orbit, the Federation attempted to fully blockade the planet. Their dreadnoughts formed a ring of unstoppable power. Still, from a hidden moonbase on the far side of Luna, Earth's newly minted starfighter squads launched in agile crafts, reverse-engineered from Federation designs. Under the call sign Ghostwing, these pilots had spent months training in secret. Leading the wing was Commander Hiro Tanaka, formerly of Earth's last major aerospace research division. The starfighter wings darted through the blockade lines, weaving around beams of lethal plasma. In the ensuing dance of light, they pitted speed and cunning against capital ships designed for large-scale engagements, not for battling nimble craft that exploited every blind spot. A few landed direct hits on a Federation destroyer's vulnerable sections, sending it spiraling. As the hours stretched on, Earth's willingness to mount sustained resistance became evident. The Federation, well versed in subduing lesser adversaries, had hoped to shock the defenders into submission early in the campaign. Instead, they faced fierce, coordinated defenses. Down in the War Council room, President Reyes allowed herself a faint flicker of hope. Reports came in describing small but significant victories: an overrun Federation compost in northern Canada, a downed battleship near the Indian Ocean, pockets of Federation troops going silent under relentless guerrilla strikes in West Africa. But for every success, Earth also suffered unimaginable losses. Entire towns were bombed into rubble. Civilians were captured and used as bargaining chips by unscrupulous Federation Command. Admiral Hunt, pushing through her exhaustion, convened a strategy meeting at Fort Ascendant. "We're holding, but we can't keep this up forever," she said. Around her, battered officers and weary strategists nodded. "Our limited resources won't withstand a protracted war. We must force them to see that subjugating us would be more trouble than it's worth. Keldran and his clique must be made to realize we can bleed them dry." Hunt's plan involved coordinated strikes at the Federation fleet's logistics. If they severed the supply lines ferrying reinforcements and specialized equipment, the Federation's invasion would lose momentum. President Reyes authorized a desperate measure: a clandestine alliance with certain rebel factions within the Federation itself. Over the years, pockets of dissent had spread among the Federation's far-flung territories. Small groups, outraged by corruption and draconian rules, sought to topple the ruling council from within. Earth had established faint contact with one such group, the Sons of Avathrax. Led by an alien named Jaltek, they despised the Federation's Supreme High Council for its elitism and bureaucratic tyranny. Though not particularly fond of humans, Jaltek recognized common ground in their shared desire for freedom. A small infiltration plan was arranged, sending Earth's best infiltration experts to slip behind the Federation's forward lines and meet secretly with Jaltek's envoys who traveled in civilian vessels. The infiltration took place under the muted glow of a half-moon. The Earth team, led by a soldier named Dmitry Sokolov, boarded an unmarked shuttle. They timed their flight to coincide with the Federation's shifting patrol routes. Low-powered drives carried them into the vacuum beyond Earth's immediate orbital perimeter, where they rendezvoused with an inconspicuous freighter. Inside a cramped cargo hold, they met the Sons of Avathrax. Tension hung thick in the recycled air as the two sides exchanged curt introductions. Barriers of mistrust loomed, but the shared necessity of toppling the Federation overcame lingering suspicion. Jaltek, speaking through a translator device, offered words of solidarity. "If we succeed here, it will reverberate across a dozen systems. We will strike at the Federation's supply fleets and sabotage their moorings. You must hold them at bay on your world. Give us time to stir rebellion across the galaxy." While forging these clandestine alliances, Earth's defenders fought relentlessly. The rich farmland of Central Asia became a flashpoint. The Federation, hoping to choke off Earth's food supply, attempted mass aerial strikes, but Earth's anti-air units had grown savvy, using layered decoy systems and hidden bunkers to lull the attackers into false confidence. Blazing dogfights erupted over wheat fields, scorching the once fertile soil. Into the night, the farmland glowed from distant fires, launching brilliant contrails as the defenders fired at silhouettes in the sky. Lord Marshal Keldron stood on the bridge of the Perseus, gloved hands tightening behind his back. He was unaccustomed to such prolonged resistance. Everywhere he turned, human soldiers and militias showed a surprising ability to adapt. Reports were trickling in that Federation convoys in space lanes near the Helion cluster had been sabotaged. Rumors spoke of localized uprisings on the Federation core world of Exar. Keldron suspected Earth's cunning. They had likely enticed the Federation's dissidents with promises of a better tomorrow. Rage burned behind his measured composure. History had taught him that conflict could forge unbreakable alliances. He intended to strike back with everything at his disposal. On Earth, the rumor of an impending Alpha strike circulated wildly among the defense forces. The Federation's rumored tactic to unleash their unstoppable weapons in a single, decisive move. Concern soared that the Federation would no longer show restraint. At Fort Ascendant, Admiral Hunt called in the best scientific minds. She assigned them to develop an experimental shielding network using salvaged Federation technologies. Dr. Serena Contreras, a brilliant physicist, had led the push to replicate Federation shield emitters by analyzing wreckage from earlier battles. Though it violated every principle of intellectual property in the galaxy, Earth's life depended on that theft. After nights of frantic labor, Contreras and her team devised a planetary-scale shield prototype. The design employed Earth's own magnetic field to anchor an overlapping series of modulated energy webs. The concept, if successful, might expand Earth's existing anti-orbital defenses significantly. However, it came with enormous power demands. Implementing the system would require shutting down key segments of Earth's power grid. Factories and even some dimming measures in major cities became necessary sacrifices to free up the massive electrical load. It was a leap of faith, an all-or-nothing gamble. When the Federation's second wave of dreadnoughts arrived to reinforce Keldron's siege, Contreras' shield network sprang to life. Translucent arcs shimmered at high altitude, interlocking into a planetary defense shell. The Federation's capital ships tested it with calculated bursts of plasma. The first few strikes scathed across the shield, scattering prismatic sparks across the stratosphere. Then came a sustained barrage. The shield flickered dangerously. Some segments collapsed under the unrelenting pounding, allowing Federation beams to hammer targets on the surface. Nevertheless, the patchwork shield slowed the enemy's progress, yielding precious time for Earth's defenders to regroup. Federation ground commanders grew bolder in an attempt to compensate for the shield. They seized control of small sections of Earth's major cities, imposing martial law behind lines of advanced mechs. Propaganda broadcasts in multiple languages proclaimed that Earth's leadership was misguided, that citizens would be spared if they only capitulated. Rebellion brewed among some of the frightened populace. A few local officials even considered switching allegiances. But for every waver, there were many who refused to bend, determined that Earth should not become a puppet world. In the battered ruins of Tokyo, specialized Federation infiltration teams attempted to hack Earth's communications. They nearly succeeded until local technology vigilantes, collectively named Codehawks, traced the infiltration route and unleashed a crippling virus that fried the hacking equipment. The Federation squads found themselves cut off, forced to fend off retaliatory strikes in the labyrinth of skyscraper skeletons. Street after street, vantage points served as kill zones for Earth snipers. Rumors spread that the infiltration teams had tried to coerce innocent civilians into revealing intelligence, only to be met by booby-trapped corridors. Tokyo became a graveyard for Federation illusions of quick conquest. Hours turned into days, then weeks. The Federation's blockade pinned Earth's supply lines into near paralysis, but equally, Earth's sabotage of the Federation's galactic routes disrupted their larger war machine. The Sons of Abathrax carried out audacious raids on Federation outposts across multiple sectors, forcing Keldron's superiors to divert resources away from subjugating Earth. Every day, more Federation warships arrived, but each day, Earth also improved its defenses, forging new alliances, repurposing captured technology and pivoting from defense to measured offense in localized areas. The cost in lives was tremendous. Graveyards spanned city parks. Families wept over the blackened remains of entire districts. The trauma united survivors in primal solidarity. Earth might be battered, but a battered planet was still theirs. From President Reyes' vantage point in the War Council, the new reality was etched into every incoming communication. News of Federation atrocities poured in, but also news of heroic feats. Small squads capturing Federation gun emplacements, towns refusing to kneel even under bombardment. The War Council vowed to keep the spark of defiance alive. Submission was not an option. Finally, word came of the Federation's intended final blow, Operation Hammerfall, under Lord Marshal Keldron's direct command. The Perseus and its dreadnought consorts would rally for a planet-killing strike if necessary, scouring Earth's surface in a show of absolute domination. Admiral Hunt gathered her top officers. "Keldron's cornered," she said, voice steady but intense. "He'll either break us or be forced to concede. We can't allow that final strike. We'll throw everything into one major confrontation, both in orbit and on the ground. We must deal them a crippling blow or unify with the Sons of Abathrax to force a truce." Earth's combined fleets, including the ragtag starfighter wings hidden on Luna, assembled for what might be their last stand. Engineers dialed the shield network to maximum, risking catastrophic failure. If it were overloaded by the stress, Brigadier Marsh led a massed counteroffensive on Earth's surface. Her battalions advanced on Federation strongholds in Europe, Asia, and the Americas, intending to split the invaders' attention. Meanwhile, specialized infiltration teams, guided by Codehawk's intelligence, prepared to sabotage the Federation's planet-killer weapon array massive orbital cannons installed on the dreadnoughts. Keldron, from the Perseus Bridge, orchestrated a multi-pronged assault. Destroyers hammered Earth's shield with punishing salvos, focusing on fracturing the energy field in multiple regions. Swarms of fighters swept down, strafing the planet's surface. All around, the skies boiled with waves of plasma. Earth's defenders launched everything in return, from rail cannons hidden along coastlines to advanced missile systems in the depths of hidden mountain bunkers. High above, the starfighter wings clashed with deadly Federation interceptors. The night sky blazed white with lethal collisions. The final push began when the Perseus revealed its planet-killer cannon, a towering barrel that emerged from its superstructure, crackling with raw cosmic energy. If fired at full power, the beam would carve through Earth's shield. "This is it," Admiral Hunt told her staff. "All or nothing." Under her authorization, the infiltration teams sprang their trap. Small craft slipped past the Federation perimeter, aided by a sudden uprising among newly arrived rebel ships. With Yaljak's help, the infiltration teams boarded the Perseus in a brazen assault, racing to disable the main reactor that powered the planet killer. Inside the gargantuan corridors, Federation troopers clashed with Sokolov's squad. Gunfire echoed among labyrinthine steel walkways. Sparks showered from overhead piping as both sides waged frantic firefights. Commander Tanaka, leading Ghost Wing, targeted the Perseus's defensive batteries. The starfighter group risked weaving through sheets of flak to strafe the dreadnought's hull. Mechs stationed on external platforms fired on them, painting the darkness with ruby beams. One by one, Tanaka's wingmates were picked off, but not before delivering crippling hits to the dreadnought's weapons array. The colossal vessel shook as explosions tore through its surface. Inside, Sokolov and his team battled past the last ring of troopers. A final corridor opened onto the main reactor chamber, a radiant well of swirling fusion. The infiltration team planted high-yield charges around the generator, set to destroy the system from within. An alarm shrieked across the dreadnought. Keldron realized the sabotage too late. Wounded Federation crew shouted into flickering consoles. The planet killer began its charging sequence, but with sabotage ravaging the power circuits, the weapon shuddered and sparked uncontrollably. Sokolov's men evacuated through a pressure lock, tackling each other into an escape pod. Keldron, seeing that the catastrophic meltdown would devastate the ship, ordered an immediate evacuation. Chaos swept through the once imposing dreadnought. Below, everyone watched as a fiery crescendo enveloped the Perseus. The dreadnought lurched, twisted, and crumpled under an expanding wave of plasma. Federation ships caught in the proximity blast reeled, fracturing the blockade. Earth's defenders roared in victory over the comm channels. With the Perseus neutralized and the rebel fleet sowing confusion among the remaining Federation vessels, the invasion's backbone snapped. Shocked Federation captains began pulling back from Earth, their chain of command in disarray. In the War Council chamber, President Reyes let heavy silence settle among her advisors as they realized the improbable. Earth had withstood the Federation's might, forcing a retreat. Their battered planet lay scarred, with entire regions devoured by flames and rubble. But they still stood. Messages flooded in from around the world, news of Federation ground troops surrendering or retreating to hastily summoned evacuation craft. The battered remnants of the Federation presence scattered into orbit, uncertain if reinforcements would ever come. Earth had fought them to a standstill, an outcome that no other planet had achieved in living memory. It was a moment that would reshape the galactic paradigm. Days later, a ceasefire was declared. The Supreme High Council disavowed Keldron's scorched earth policy, claiming they never intended total destruction. Internal pressure mounted on the Council, with rebellious factions growing bolder across the galaxy. Negotiations opened between Earth's leaders and more moderate elements of the Federation, discussing new ways to coexist without sacrificing sovereignty. Earth stood firm, unwilling to discard their hard-won independence. President Reyes gave a stirring address to a crowd gathered in Geneva's half-ruined square, broadcast across every channel. "Humanity has always been tested, but never on such a scale," she said. "We have proven that we will not submit, and in doing so we have sparked new possibilities for worlds across this galaxy." Admiral Hunt attended the ceremony to honor those lost in the fighting. Rows of white markers filled fields once used for farmland. Soldiers with bandaged wounds stood side by side with freed prisoners. Brigadier Marsh saluted the brilliant engineers who kept the shield system alive, while Dr. Contreras wept beside her team, exhausted by sleepless efforts yet awed by the survival of Earth. Commander Tanaka visited the families of fallen pilots, mourning in quiet solidarity. Their sacrifices had kept Earth's skies free. In the weeks that followed, the battered cities began to rebuild. Entire neighborhoods worked day and night to repair essential systems. Volunteers poured in to help the displaced. Aid shipments arrived in unexpected forms, some from newly liberated planets that sent what little they could spare, a gesture of gratitude for Earth's defiance. The sons of Avathrax, emboldened by the success at Earth, continued fomenting unrest throughout Federation space, forcing a recalibration of galactic politics. Whispers floated that soon there might be a new Federation one, built on more just and equitable foundation. While the official peace remained fragile, Earth savored a moment free from the overshadowing threat. The memory of the war would shape them for generations. From the ruins rose a shared identity that transcended old divisions. People recalled with pride how they had stood against a corrupt empire, forging alliances among themselves and distant rebels alike. Every battered building, every crater, every tear shed etched the cost of freedom into the planet's surface. Their victory wasn't a triumph alone. It was a guiding flame for others oppressed by the Federation, a message that even a smaller world, if united and determined, could stand against a seemingly invincible empire. There would be more trials ahead. The Federation still possessed immense power, and tensions would persist in diplomatic talks. But Earth now negotiated as a recognized force, capable of defending itself, demanding fair treatment as an equal voice among the stars. Among the scarred mountains and the bombed-out streets, hope bloomed like defiant flowers pushing through concrete. No matter what future battles might loom, humanity had proven its spirit unbreakable. The sacrifices, the horrors, and the unyielding resistance had cast a new mold for Earth's destiny. They had refused to kneel, and in that refusal they had found a lasting place in the galaxy.